How do you see God? Often we're given the vision of God as a sort of Santa Claus who grants wishes to good little believers who pray often and well and who do lots of good things. But it's a really harmful theology rooted in the mythical idea that the world is fair and makes sense. And even though I know it's terrible theology, I find myself thinking maybe the good things that happen in my life are at least a little bit down to me, even though I know they're not. But it's so entrenched in American culture that I find that feeling impossible to shake. Of course, the flip side of this American theology is highly toxic. If God gives us good things because we deserve them, then when bad things happen to us, we must assume God is punishing us or testing us or whatever. Thinking of God in this way might help us make sense of a confusing and unjust world, but it's not how God works. Everything doesn't happen for a reason. Sometimes life just stinks. If we try too hard to make everything make sense just to make ourselves feel more comfortable, we get into the sort of theological minefield that can completely destroy our relationship with a God who loves us. Bad things were about to happen to Jesus, and he knew it. He also knew he hadn't somehow earned those bad things. He knew it wasn't fair. He also knew that God was not the one setting the path forward. God was not giving him some sort of test to pass or seeing how much Jesus could handle. Jesus also knew there would only be one way through. So he prayed. And today's gospel text in John is part of that prayer. Today's gospel text is a mystical text, which is why there's so much repetition. You're supposed to get kind of lost in it. It's part of what is often called Jesus' priestly prayer, and he prays it directly before journeying to the garden with his disciples, directly before he is betrayed by Judas, arrested by Roman soldiers, and killed. Jesus knows what is about to happen. In this prayer, he's not asking for God to mitigate these terrible events as much as he might want God to do that. In this moment when he is facing his death, Jesus prays for his friends. How do you pray when you don't know what to say? Where do you even start? When Jesus was searching for words and facing a terrible, immediate future reality, he looked outside of himself. We all like to think of our lives as relatively stable, like our routines are down to us. But last year, we were all shaken from that myth, and it sent a lot of people spinning. Think of the anti-masking and anti-lockdown rallies where people were protesting against the very things that would have helped all of us get back to a more normal life more quickly. Those rallies were just the unfiltered outcry of emotion that we were all feeling, bristling against changes that constantly reminded us that the control we thought we had over our lives was always merely an illusion. For any of you who have had a relative or dear friend face a major diagnosis, or who have had one yourselves, or for any of you who have lost a loved one, you know this feeling on an even deeper level. You know that it takes time to come to terms with that loss of durability, the loss of a sense of permanence and control. We are told that life is a gift, that each day is precious. But for those who know those truths as the result of a diagnosis, those phrases are not just greeting cards or sweet memes. They are life itself. Kate Bowler is a professor of American religion at Duke University who is my age and is living with chronic stage 4 colon cancer. She was diagnosed at 35 as the mom to a 2-year-old with no family history of cancer, no reason to think she would be particularly at risk, which is precisely why it escalated so far before it was caught. She's been living through 3-month cycles of chemo ever since. That is, every 3 months she finds out whether she might live another 3 months. She speaks and writes a lot about learning to live with the precarity of life, that the durability we think we have is just an illusion. She also speaks about how people who live with chronic illness are not problems to be solved, but people to be loved. Jesus knew that his problem could not be solved, but he wanted to ensure that his disciples would live in love for one another, for God and for the world. There is no concrete action here in his prayer. There is no big deliverable ask. At the end of all things, there's only a conversation about love. In moments like these, God doesn't demand any more from us, any understanding or knowledge or sense-making. God doesn't demand that we find God. God is already there, at the center of our being, the ground of our being. When you're out of things to pray for, when everything is uncertain, love is all there is. Love is the heart of who we are. Love reminds us whose we are. We belong to God, and in God, we are one. Amen.